Hey, Armand here with a special report on Jupiter retrograding into Pisces. He'll be retrograding into the sign of the fish on October 28th, staying there until December 20th. So, this is a bit of a shift. Now, we've talked already about Jupiter in Pisces. So a lot of the things that you may have seen on a previous video, although that was a while ago now, you may not have seen that or you may have forgotten and so on. A lot of that stuff is true. But I think what's most important is that he's retrograding out of Aries and when he's doing it. Now, Jupiter in Aries is Jupiter's inspiration. Jupiter is excitement and enthusiasm. And Aries, well, that's competition. That is forward motion. Let's not mince words. Aries is the god of war. So this is sort of warlike energy. Jupiter in Aries, I think of as being like a marching man. Marching, march, Mars, marshal, all the same derivation there. It is about inspiration and enthusiasm. It could be the bands that play when people are going off to war. It's the college fight song. I think of this as being the kind of energy that can really get people riled up and inspired for some competition and that type of thing. That is Jupiter in Aries. Now, Jupiter in Pisces, on the other hand, well, this is a mellower kind of energy. It's not exactly like a lay down and sleep all the time kind of energy, but it is a less martial kind of feel to it. It is much more spiritual, a little bit more open, a little bit more, well, if Jupiter in Aries is a march, then Jupiter in Pisces is more like, Debussy's La Mer, or maybe a Gregorian chant or something along those lines. Jupiter in Aries, you think of a ball game, you get to a crucial moment and they play ba-da ba-da ba-da, and the audience yells charge, that kind of thing. Jupiter in Pisces is more like the wave. It's the sixth inning, scores tied at one out, nothing much happening. Let's do the wave, let's pass a little time type of thing. It's a different kind of energy on the collective level. Does that mean that it'll take away some of our more bellicose tendencies? I really don't think so. After all, Russia invaded Ukraine with Jupiter in Pisces last spring, or last winter, actually. It didn't go as planned, though, did it? So I don't think it'll take away the impulse, especially with Mars retrograde. But as for the progress on that kind of project, the competitive, the warlike sort of energies, I don't really see it as being really supportive of that, especially because Jupiter leaves Mars' home sign of Aries. Actually, Mars and Aries. Aries is just the Greek word for Mars, or vice versa, right? It's the same word. So Jupiter leaves Mars' sign 2 days before Mars starts to retrograde back. And of course, the Mars retrograde, you should catch the video on that. There's a lot to say about that. So Mars retrograde, people are going to be feeling, they'll be feeling that anger energy. They'll be feeling that sort of want to go forward, but Mars is pulling backwards. And Jupiter, if Jupiter was lending any support in Aries, it's gone now. It's gone as he retrogrades back into Pisces. So there's really nothing that is going to push that Aries kind of energy forward. Again, people are going to want to. That's a Mars retrograde thing, but it just doesn't bode very well for the success of things like competitions and wars and stuff like that. It'd be interesting to see what happens with Elon Musk and the lawsuit and all of that kind of thing, or any kind of lawsuit that's going on, or any kind of trial that's going on. If you want to watch that sort of thing in the collective, see what goes on. So that's the difference between Jupiter in Aries and then Jupiter retrograding into Pisces. Now, he stops his retrograde on, I want to say the right answer, November 23rd, which is the day before Thanksgiving in the United States. That should be nice. Jupiter stations tend to be fun. They sort of, everybody's inspired and enthusiastic and say, well, let's give it a shot. Jupiter in Pisces, here comes Thanksgiving. Let's eat too much. Let's drink too much. It seems, I'm not saying it's a good idea to do those things. I'm just saying that's the way it's likely to play out for a lot of folks. Maybe not you, but for a lot of folks. So right around that station on November 23rd, we get a little bit of that boost. Now, there's a lot of other stuff happening between now and November 23rd, I have to tell you, including a full moon eclipse that is on November 8th that is going to be, it's a big deal, but we'll get to that later. So we're not heading into some sort of mellow period of time or anything like that. That's not at all what's happening. We are still in the midst of things being up in the air. It's just that Jupiter is not helping that Aries martial kind of cause anymore. He's pulling back into that Piscean. A little bit more of a feel towards compassion, a little bit more of a feel towards spirituality, as I said. Now, some of the things that Jupiter does while he is in the sign, he makes a nice trine to Venus on November 15th. Now, Venus is in Scorpio, where she's not terribly happy, but she'll be so happy to connect with her best friend Jupiter, who's in her favorite sign of Pisces. And I think that then right around November 15th, remember, these things build up and then they kind of crest and then they fall off. So I would say, the 13th, the 14th, the 15th, 16th, maybe. There should be some opportunities, maybe in finances, perhaps in the area of relationships, a little bit of a push-pull in there about what's going on. When it's going to, you could set the table around the middle of November. It'll very likely be around December 9th when Venus squares Jupiter. That will get, let's say, I want to say our marching orders, but that would be mixing metaphors terribly. It's right around that time that we're likely to see how things are going to play out and make a decision for movement. Now, you say a square is always a tense aspect. How could this be a positive thing? The answer is that Venus will be in Jupiter's home sign of Sagittarius, while Jupiter is in Pisces. So we have Venus in Sagittarius, Jupiter in Pisces, which they both love that sign. So even though the aspect is tense, it's a square, they're both so happy. They're in mutual reception 2 or 3 different ways. But it's Jupiter. You might as well talk up the situation. So it's very likely right around December 9th that we get this kind of, the good feel and also the action orientation. Jupiter will be going direct at that point, of course, and so it's a different kind of feel than when he's retrograding up until November 23rd. The other thing that is happening, which I think is just terrific there, is that Jupiter is going to be squared by Mercury, and that is going to happen on December 6th. Now, Mercury will also be in Jupiter's home sign of Sagittarius. It will be interesting to see how that plays out. Jupiter and Mercury get along fine, but they're not best friends, so that we're looking for, a good outcome. It's going to be terrific. Rather, Mercury in Sagittarius doesn't really work out all that well. Actually, Mercury and Jupiter, they don't really get along well in each other's signs. They're actually not such great friends. Mercury in Sagittarius can be very polarizing, this side, that side type of thing. And Jupiter in Pisces, Jupiter might actually be able to rein him in if he was, let's say, conjunct in Sagittarius. But with Jupiter in Pisces, not sure how that's going to go. What do you want? You want the short story. I am being very Mercury square Jupiter right now, demonstrating to you what the problem is. You can say too much. There's a little bit too much of the loquacious kind of energy. There is the sense, I'm going to say what I believe to be the truth is without actually checking any facts. So I would take a high degree of skepticism for anything that happens right around that first week in December when it comes to practical stuff in the area of, let's say, well, certainly in the collective politics and social stuff. You'll see a lot of polarization going on over there, as though we don't have it already. In our personal lives around that time, be careful that somebody's not selling you a bill of goods. This is not a great time to be making decisions about things. There's a little too much enthusiasm. Somebody could be selling you something and telling you how great it is, and they might be sort of, like gilding the lily, as they say. But to tell you the truth, your own enthusiasm might be very high at that point in time, and you might say, "Oh yeah, let me get some of that." Then Jupiter leaves for Aries again on December 20th. Mars is still retrograde, but now Jupiter is going forward in Aries. It gives a little tiny bit more of a push. I really think we have to wait until mid-January when Mars goes direct to actually go forward with many, many projects. But we'll be feeling it more as we get to the end of the year. So that's the story on Jupiter retrograding back into Pisces. After all, we have to know what's going to happen, even if we're not really sure what it is.